Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we have a really special video. This is on something that you have not seen elsewhere. This is the first time you'll be seeing about this. We've all had several videos on the LMT Estonia reference rifle, which is the rifle that you see here. LMT has offered this for a few years now, which is an exact duplicate of the rifle that they sold to the Estonian military. Well, we actually have all three of the rifles that were sold to the Estonian military, which again, you've only heard of one. There are two additional ones. We have the 14.3 inch infantry rifle. We have a 12-inch rifle as well. And we have a 16-inch external piston Mars 308H. This is also the first time that LMT has ever done an external piston version of the 308. But let's get a little bit into where this rifle had come from. The Estonian military was using some pretty outdated rifles. They were using G3 type rifles, and they were using Galils. So they were updating their arsenal. So there was a competition that was held. Many of the big boys were there. You had SIG was there, HK was there, as well as LMT. So you had some of the bigger manufacturers that were there competing. And there was a very interesting requirement that came out of this. This is something that I have not seen in my contract. Because again, working with Colt and Lewis Machine & Tool at that time, and some of the other companies that I've done consulting with, most of the rifles that were always sold were internal piston rifles. There was very few of these companies that were offered external piston, but very few companies that had customers who wanted them, other than what you saw from like H&K, for instance. The Estonian military basically said internal pistons need not apply. They had a very specific criteria that was built around health. They basically felt that an internal piston rifle would blow gases, heavy metals, back into the shooter's face, which, again, firing, I don't even want to guess how many hundreds of thousands, if not million plus rounds I fired over the years. I certainly never felt that I was getting heavy metals in my face unless I was using a sound suppressor. But they basically said for health concern reasons, they wanted an external piston rifle because, again, it's not going to blow the lead, the barium back into the face of the shooters. So fortunately for LMT, and I had this conversation with Carl probably back in 2004, because Carl, I mean, of course, he was always a gentleman who liked the internal pistons as well. And he had come out with his MRP CQB, and he had a whole new operating system. His system had the ability for you to switch out operating systems, internal or external. So I was really shocked when he had the external. So I asked Carl, why did you do that? He goes, because the customers want it, which is one of the keys to LMT success, where some of the other companies that have worked for it, not so much. When you're with a contract such as this, where the customer is telling you that we want external piston rifles, and you have a company, for instance, Colt, who basically puts out internal piston guns, they're going to say, no, you want this, and that's not going to happen. So what ends up happening is the company that won't give the customer what they want, they lose the job, they lose the ability to have that sale, and it goes to somebody who will, like LMT. So Carl was always of the mindset, I will give the customers what they want, regardless of whether I think it's the best thing to do or not. So that was a conversation I remember having him with a long time ago. And I'll be the first to admit that I got around 2004, 2005 when I did my MRP. Then I got my own MRP system. I had both barrels. I had both the internal and external. But I have to say, I did an article. I shot the external piston, and then I put it back. I put it back in the closet, and I never looked at it again because I was an internal piston person. Well, it was up until a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, after this contract where LMT won it with the external piston system, that I actually started giving some attention to it and started doing some reviews on it. In fact, you guys will see a video that I did do a review on the LMT external piston systems, and I was quite impressed with it. Well, the Estonian military had very specific requirements for that external piston system. So the rifle that we see here is their basic infantry rifle. This is set up in the exact configuration that they are issued. So I'm going to go off of each individual model, just show you what some of the differences are and what's the same. Starting in the front, this was another interesting thing. The normal barrels that you see on M4s for military use is 14.5 inches. The Estonian government wanted 14.3. So why would you want 14.3 instead of 14.5? Who knows? Given what they want, they went with a 14.3. Now, they also had a specific sound suppressor they chose, and you'll see that coming up pretty soon. It's a GSL sound suppressor. So the muzzle device here is for the GSL 7.62 sound suppressor. It is used on both the 5.56 and the 308 versions of the rifles. So the same suppressor universal across the board. They're the barrels an LMT is known for. These are 4150 chromoly vanadium, manganese phosphate finish, chrome plated in the inside, and they are cryogenically treated for stress relief. They're very heavy duty machine gun grade barrels. Now, you look up at the gas block here, we'll see we have a bayonet lug. Well, they wanted to be able to have a bayonet on here, so LMT gave them a bayonet lug on the gas block. Now, we also have an adjustable piston system. This was something that was changed also. If you were to look at the original LMT piston, the valve, you had a suppressed and unsuppressed, but you had to push the button and you had to rotate it a full 180 degrees for you to be able to get to the unsuppressed and suppressed settings, depending on which one that you are on. LMT fixed that so it was more easily to get to. Instead of having to push a button and it rotate it halfway, they basically push, you have a little button you push and it gives you a quick turn. So it's much more efficient. If you also look at we'd also have a hole here that's for you to place a cartridge in. So if this was hot, you'd be able to adjust it even with a hot gas valve. The upper receiver they chose was the MLK or the M-Lock. So this is a CQB version. It's an M-Lock monolithic upper receiver. They all have the LMT backup sights front and rear on them. So I'll go back, of course, we have the forward assist, we have our cartridge case deflector, and it has the Mars lower. Mars basically meaning the modular ambidextrous rifle system. So you have ambidextrous features. So as you see, we have an ambidextrous bolt release on the right-hand side, ambi safety, magazine release. Then we flip it over to the left-hand side. We have ambidextrous magazine, we have the bolt catch, and we also have the safety. They also did a redesign of their pistol grip. They've been using ergo grips for many, many, many years. They have now gone ahead and made their own. They have their own pistol grip now, which is basically the same. It's the same form, but it's their own. Now the stock assembly, they chose on the the rifles, the 5.56s, the Mo SLK stocks. This is on both of them. You're going to see this was one that was chosen. Now, the receiver extension is a 6-position receiver extension, but you also notice that it's got a grayish color to it. LMT puts a dry-fill lubricant on all of their receiver extensions, and that basically keeps the stock from rattling around quite a bit. So it's hard coat anodized on the bottom, and then they put the dry-fill lubricant on the top, and that takes care of that. Now, the external piston carrier. As you see, we have a nickel-type finish to it. And one of the things that came out of this contract that I was really excited to see was now you have a captive firing pin retaining pin. One of the things I've talked to a lot of people in the industry about, they're talking about, well, how do I make it improve this or how do I make it improve that? One of the things I've always said was with the bolt carrier, have a captive firing pin retaining pin. It's the most lost part that you have on this rifle for soldiers in the field. It's just a better all-around system. Well, LMT must have gotten the requirement from Estonia to have this captive. So this particular one is captive. So the soldier is not going to lose this pin in the field. Now the bolt that we have on here, this is a standard mil spec AR-15M16 bolt. It's a standard cam pin. It's a very heavy duty bolt. This is basically its second or third generation. The original one they had was manganese phosphate finished. And when they started doing a lot of full auto fire with it, they had noticed that they were having some peening issues with it. It was one of the videos had shown that this was getting peened. So LMT basically redid all the metallurgy on it, and all of them were now with this nickel coating on here, so you can tell the difference between the new ones and the older ones. So this would probably be your second generation, and I'll probably say your third generation will be the one that has the captive firing pin retaining pin. So the buffer that's used as well on all the external piston guns is an H2. H2 just due to the fact that the way the bolt opens, you have a much more violent opening. It's not a smooth opening like you have with an internal piston. So that gives you a little bit of extra weight onto the bolt to keep that closed a little bit longer. The sling that was chosen was the Blue Force Tactical gear. It's a Vickers combat sling, which is one that they had chosen. One of the things that I had learned that Holosun, I had not known they were a quote military grade optic until this contract. So the Estonian military has gone with the HS515GM circle dot and a three-power magnifier. According to some of the pictures that you're going to see of the Estonian military with these rifles, some of them have the magnifier, some of them don't. But this is the baseline of what the rifles are. You very well may see other configurations, like we're going to show you one with an EOTech on here too. That's another one that I had seen in the wild with the Estonian military using some different optics as well. So here you have their basic combat rifle. Now we have the second version. The second version is basically everything that you were to hear there, except it has a 12-inch barrel instead of a a 14.3. Now, again, you also see that we have the mounting attachment for the GSL 7.62 can. Now, here's another interesting issue with the gas valves. The service rifle, the standard combat rifle, is a one-position only gas valve. The carbine version here, or the short barrel version, this has a suppressed and an unsuppressed feature. So, combat rifle, one position. The short barrel has two positions. And the only thing that we'd seen really differently on here was the, this says an EOTech. Again, you'll find many different optics as you look, if you look at Estonian Defense Force and on the internet for photographs of their soldiers. But other than that, it's the exact same rifle, SLK stock. It's just basically the same rifle you see here. They pop out the barrel. You can put it at a 12-inch or they can put it at a 14.3-inch. That was the beauty of them going with this system. By going with the MRP system, they're able to swap out barrels without having it on a unit level like you would any other rifle. The next rifle we see here, this is probably the most unique of all of them. This is their 16-inch external piston DMR rifle. Now, this was one that was developed by LMT specifically to fit the Estonia contract. Prior to the Estonia contract, LMT did not make an external piston version of the 7.62 or 308 platform. So this was made the exact same way he did his 5.56. The exact same upper receiver. It's a matter of just swapping out the barrel which has on it the gas block is pinned in place. So it's all one assembly that slides right into the receiver and you have a modified carrier. So what we see here is the Mars H rifle with a 16.5-inch barrel. Again, looking at the front, you're going to see it has the same attachment for the GSL sound suppressor. Again, one suppressor for all three versions. This has adjustable gas valve on here as well. This has basically the same features that you'll see on the other rifles, but it's just sort of up on steroids. When you look at the upper receiver, this is an MLK as well. This is all M-LOK. It's in the narrower, the thinner versions. The upper receiver, but what you don't see on this is a forward assist, which I'm absolutely still ecstatic for that Carl has held his guns and has not put a forward assist on these guns because, again, I have said on many occasions that it's a mistake for these rifles. It's not necessary. Here's another rifle that has gone through military testing, military combat testing, NATO standardization testing, and environmental testing, and it passed in flying colors, and it did not have a forward assist. So again, that's more vindication that it is not necessary. It's something that's added there for a psychological reason. It has no real purpose. So this is I'm very glad to see this still does not have that, because the SR-25s is a Gene Stoner originally developed them. It didn't have a forward assist. That's one thing that he did. When he did the M16A2 parts compatibility, the one part he did not go with was a forward assist. So this rifle kept with that. But you have on the stock, instead of having the more compact SLK stock, this is the standard SL stock. Now, just like the other rifles, you have a extended receiver extension, because this is a 7.62 rifle. There's two different types of receiver extensions. You have the standard one that's used for the most part. They're using a standard mil-spec receiver extension, which is the same diameter as anything else. They have to use a much smaller, tinier buffer to be able to use that. And what that does, that buffer doesn't have enough weight in it to stop bolt carrier bounce. So for military-grade rifles, it doesn't work. But for commercial rifles, you're not doing fully automatic, the carrier bounce isn't that much of an issue. They don't do it. LMT makes military-grade rifles. So what they do is they make a receiver extension that's extended, and this takes standard M4 buffers, full-length buffers. And for a 308, you use an H3 buffer. That is the weight that you would use for one of these. So you have a proper buffer, but there are other customers who did. They're in New Zealand when they bought their DMR rifles. There's other contracts LMT has had as well who bought DMR rifles that they didn't have them selective fire. And what's the benefit of that? For your sniper, you have your precision rifle, but if you get into trouble with that heavy barrel that you have on there, you have a light support weapon if needed to get you out of trouble. SR-25 magazines, and everything else is basically the same. So this is the entire family of weapons that was bought by the Estonian government. The only thing that's missing here is the grenade launcher, the 9-inch grenade launcher that would attach to any one of these. Obviously, you don't think you really want to put it on a 308, but both of these rifles will accept the M203 grenade launcher. So LMT basically went from rifles that were, I would say, Cold War era. You're looking at Gellos and you're looking at G3s. You're looking at guns that were very much old school. They were iron sight. They weren't what you would call high-tech type weapons. Getting these in the hands of those troops, you're giving them additional capabilities. You look at something like a Gello, you don't have the accuracy that you do with this type of a platform. You don't have the modularity for as far as changing out barrel calibers. You don't have the accuracy that you do out of these. These rifles here, on a regular basis, you will get sub 2 MOA, and I actually have had some of these rifles that have gone 1 MOA using Mark II 6.2 ammunition, good ammunition. Now, for as far as optics were concerned, this is not the optic that was chosen. In fact, a lot of the videos that I had seen, or pictures I had seen, they were using different optics. I had seen the VCOG, I've seen Vortex type one, so I've seen a couple different kinds of optics. This is the optic that I chose for my rifle. It's the Vortex 6-4 to 50. It's an excellent optic. It's very good for long range precision. It's got a nice spur mount on it, but this just happens to be what I've chosen for my rifle. Again, what I've seen on the rifles for Estonia were all, again, VCOGs and other types of Vortex LPVOs. So we're not going to do any shooting in here with these. This right now is just going to be more of an educational video to show you that there was more than one rifle for the Estonian contract. And all based off of the same platform. And again, having modularity. This is very similar to what happened in New Zealand. In New Zealand, you had a rifle that was used, a Steyr AUGs by the regular army, but the special forces were not using those. They were using M4s. They were using other weapons because they wanted better weapons than, had better capabilities than the regular army did. Estonia did the same thing for as far as adopting a new weapons platform that would not just be used by a regular army, but would also be used by special forces, and it would be used by the DMRs as well. One platform for everything. There's a lot of benefits to having this kind of a platform. Depending on what job you need, you have a standard carbine for regular use. You're doing more mounted. You can switch over to a 12.5, same manual arms, nothing changes. And then you throw somebody into a DMR role, you give them this rifle, everything's the same. The entire lower receiver is the same. Your manual arms is the same. Disassembly maintenance is the same. You have one weapon that takes care of 3 different, basically jobs here. That is very easily used by everybody. It's all the same. So there's a lot to be said about that. I hope you guys did enjoy this video on the Estonia contract rifles. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Thank you.